Now at 6, we begin with Cuba in crisis. Cuban leaders say they are willing to accept a U.S. offer of $100 million worth of humanitarian aid. This as the country runs out of fuel and massive blackouts have led to protests. The news comes as a U.S. delegation visited the island nation for high-level talks that included CIA Director John Ratcliffe. Good evening, I'm Lauren Pastrana. Thank you for joining us. CBS News Miami's Manuel Bojorquez is your reporter live in Little Havana with more on what's happening on the island and the local reaction. Manny?
Well, Lauren, the community here definitely keeping a very close eye on all those late-breaking developments coming out of Cuba and those rare protests that unfolded after another night of prolonged blackouts. Parts of Cuba, including the capital Havana, plunged into darkness as the sound of cacerolazos, the banging of pots and protests, grew louder. The Cuban government blames U.S. restrictions on oil imports, part of President Trump's pressure campaign on the Cuban regime. They should squeeze them more until Cuba changes, Mario Cabrera told me outside Versailles in Little Havana. Not everyone agrees with the tactic.
What are they going to do if they can't get fuel? I'm totally against the Cuban regime. But what the U.S. is doing is the wrong thing.
On top of shortages of food and medicine, experts say oil isn't the only problem. It's a power grid that's falling apart.
But it's going to get to the point there's no electricity in Cuba.
Andy Gomez is professor of Cuba studies at the University of Miami.
Is this increasingly dire situation enough to force the regime to come to the table with the United States?
I think they have no choice.
So the question is, when will it get to that point?
I think this is the worst. Right now, I have to believe there are conversations going on within the inner circle. We have no choice.
One potential sign of that is the willingness of the Cuban government to consider accepting humanitarian aid from the United States. But Gomez cautions that as long as military support remains intact, regime change is still very difficult. We're live in Little Havana. Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, Miami.
Of course, our community watching this with interest. Manny, thank you. And stay with CBS News Miami for the latest developments in Cuba. You can always stay up to date by clicking on our Cuba in Crisis tab. It's on CBSMiami.com.